continuing bi-monthly series for ILF Samanvay, where this year it is themed around translations. It has been our good fortune that we have on board for this evening, and hopefully for another evening in the near future, Naveen Kishore, publisher of Seagull Books, whose publications have done some seminal and wonderful work in the world of translations. It is a privilege to have with us this evening, thanks to him, Mr. Pritish Nandy and the translator of the book, Mr. Arunava Sinha, to be reading from the book. So is Naveen back in the room? May I now invite Naveen to please come and take this evening forward. Thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you for our future events. Thank you.
Thank you, Vidyun. Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Kakar, all of Habitat Center. Everybody's been absolutely magnificent. They allowed me to come in day before yesterday and be the frustrated theatre lighting designer I used to be, putting up 2 spotlights and putting up the chair, which now Pritish is refusing to sit in, but that's okay. Yeah, this, we hope, is the first of a series of translation events through the year. And so, thank you. Just a very brief word before I request Pritish Da to come here, which is that the way it works is that he and I go back somewhat 342 years, is that correct? Yeah, about that much. And the relationship is actually very simple, despite our occasional differences on politics. He's always been there. It's amazing, not just for me. Little notes from me, stage photographer, stage journalist, 4 decades going to Bombay, would get assignments. It was that sort of a thing. Or if I wanted a 150 rupee brochure ad in 72, I would get a Geskin William full-page ad for my theatre. So, thank you, Pritish. And with that, the way this would work is that he has the freedom to read for as long as he wishes to, but after which, Arunava, who has translated the book and is the series editor of all our Indian books, translations from Indian languages, will introduce the poet and give you a sense in the original Bengali of some of the poems. Pritish?
I have not known Bhaskar Chakrabarti's poetry very intimately over the years, but he belonged to a generation of poets who were truly remarkable, who not only brought a new language, created a new language post-ago, but created a new poetry. Many of them, quite a few of them in fact, have passed away. But what they have done is they have changed the entire face of Bengali poetry, and indeed Indian poetry. Unfortunately, not much of poetry is available in translation from the different languages. I know only 3 or 4, but I used to bring out a little magazine many years ago, and little books of pamphlets of poetry, and we found the most incredible work in Urdu, Hindi, Odia, Malayalam, Tamil, just incredible work. And I'm sad that we have no institutionalized support for such translations, because there are works that defy translation and need to be read, but the translation is the key to reading them or getting people attracted to them. There's a story which I was just telling Arunav, I had translated, and he was telling me his book contains that as well, which I think is possibly the most incredible story ever written in any language. Short story. made into a film in Bengali, made into a film in Hindi, neither of which captured its magic. It was a story called Tilanapota Abhishkar. The entire story is written in the future tense. It's amazing. It's a love story written in the future tense, and it takes you to another locale, to some broken ruins, and through that into another world. You would love it, Aman. And absolutely incredible journey and incredible experience. Mrinal Sen did it in Bengali, and I forget who did it in Hindi, but neither of them were anywhere near the magic of the book, because very often, something that younger people don't realize, images can't compete with words at times. I mean, they, of course, overtake words very often, but sometimes they can't capture the subtle nuances, the magic, the mystery, and the elusiveness of words only through which you can capture the spirit of a tale. And after all that we do is we tell tales. I'll just randomly pick up a few of the poems and try and show you how interesting the work is, and the translations are absolutely outstanding. This one is called the Gyoko Piano. I've been playing chess against myself since evening. Both the queens are mine. 4 rooks, 4 bishops, all of them. Following my commands, what time is it now? Did anyone come looking for me? I can't control my 2 queens at night anymore. When dawn breaks, I'm thinking of walking far, far away. After which, I'll consider whether to come back home ever again. A slightly wittier one. The woman who used to love me very much found a husband was bitten by a dog yesterday. She's very busy with the doctor and medicines now. Standing on a crowded road no longer enthralls me. From the dark cigarette shop, I'm flying now in the distance. There is the distance. Debu's wife is buying mustard. I'm happy. I'm forgetting everything. And a few fragments of love. It's drizzling tonight. I'm writing down the rain now. I am not unhappy that you didn't stay with me eventually. I understand. I understand the language of rain now. I understand the language of night. I can weep quietly in my own language now. Night is here to unfasten the wings of dreams again. Listen, you consider yourself very pretty. Go back to your husband if you like. I will go to an ugly girl somewhere to cry in silence. May her loneliness, her clear-eyed joy, construct me in the calm light of the night, it seems. The world will one day be even more beautiful than I imagined. Ceaselessly the sun rises and sets. Day one moment, night the next. I cannot keep pace anymore. And who are you? Come straight into my room. It's true, I've seen you once or twice. Are you not going to say I'm your wife? There's something I chant quite often nowadays. Don't cover yourself up. If you wish, wander around and laugh and die. Don't go looking for love like a detective. His later poems are a little more friendless. Never go near your friends, be alone as long as you can. Never go near your lover, be alone as long as you can. All gone, yet only a heart can still go near a heart. The night is deeper now, your face is even closer to mine. I have an urge to walk a long way along the empty streets. Someone must have switched off all of Calcutta's lights. Only a lamp burns in my room. I can see your face. I can hear your breath. It's almost dawn. And I'll end with a small poem, a tribute to Jibanananda Das, who was one of our greatest poets ever, again post-Tagore, who wrote Bonalata Sen, possibly the most memorable love poem ever written. Chul tar kobhekar andhokar bitishar nisha mukta shabostir karukarjo. I mean, that kind of tribute no one's ever paid to a woman as Jivananda paid in Bonalata Sen. হাজার বছর ধরে আমি পথ হাঁটিতেছি পৃথিবীর পথে পথে সিংহল সমুদ্র থেকে নিশীথের আধারে মালয় সাগরে আমি ক্লান্ত প্রাণ এক চারিদিকে জীবনের সমুদ্র সফেন. That is the mystique, that is the magic of Jivanananda. Or his great poem is one of my favorite one about Bengal, which became one of the glowing metaphors of the Bangladesh war struggle. আবার আসিব ফিরে সেই ধান সিঁড়িটির তীরে এই বাংলায় হয়তো মানুষ নয় শঙ্খচিল শালিকের বেশে. So this is the tribute that Bhaskar has paid to Jivananda Das. When I think of him, I don't send a telegram, only a light is switched on. And I see my heart as white as a flag of truce. I didn't sleep last night, nor the night before, but there's still no fatigue. I shan't go to work anymore. I know the light is not for me. It's been years since ordinary people have had ordinary bread. The police are here to investigate the theft almost a month later. Tram lines, everyone is looking for him today, wiping out show-off banalities, rinsing them off. 100 years later, the house he lived in will be nationalized. Just to context it for those who didn't know, Jivananda Das was getting down from a tram when his dhoti got caught in one of the wheels of the tram or whatever that hangs under a tram. And he was dragged for 3 kilometers and died. That's what this tribute is about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pritish. Arunava.
Thank you, Pritish. Thank you, Naveen. And Thank you to one person who is not here right now. That's Shunandini Banerjee, who is the designer of the marvelous book, the marvelous production of the translation that you'll see outside. Bhaskar Chakrabarti was a very tall man. He was taller than the average Bengali. He was taller than most of the poets who were his contemporaries. And only partly ironically, he referred to himself as a giraffe. One of his books was titled The Language of Giraffes. And indeed, like a giraffe, he looked upon the world from a vantage that perhaps the others, his contemporaries, could not see. It is a well-known fact that Bengalis are by nature melancholy if they live in Bengal. They manage to escape it by going away elsewhere. Bhaskar Chakrabarti lived with melancholia probably most of his life. And in a very strange way, he was rediscovered by readers in the 21st century. Oddly enough, thanks to social media. People discovered his poems and suddenly started posting them, and a new generation of readers came to read and see in his poetry something perhaps of their own condition. His more famous contemporaries were real luminaries. Sunil Gangopadhyay and Shakti Chattopadhyay were, of course, the twin suns in the sky of Bangla poetry. There were the elder statesmen like Shankha Ghosh, and a lot of other people as well. But Bhaskar Chakrabarti, who was friends with all of them, who was very much part of the same circle, and yet was the quiet one who was lesser known, lesser read, and possibly lesser talked about. His approach to poetry was, obviously it shared a lot with them, being since he was part of the same circle, but it was very different in the sense that unlike them, and you may have got a sense of that if you're familiar with the poetry that was written in the 1970s, 80s, 90s in Calcutta, his poetry was quieter, calmer. It did not look for the frenzy, the madness, the passion that you see in Sunil Gangopadhyay's and Shakti Chattopadhyay's work, for example. He was contemplative, he looked inwards, and he had this strange communion with characters who perhaps did not inhabit the real world around him. He has a wonderful series of conversations with a character whom he calls God. When it comes to his approach to poetry, he looked for poetry not in the wild metaphor, not in the fantastically imaginative image, not in putting together words in ways in which nobody else did, but indeed in the cadences of everyday language. Many of his sentences, if you read his sentences at random, they will just seem like snatches of conversation, banal observations even made by one person to another. But the way he put it all together miraculously ended up as poetry. If I read to you lines at random, you wouldn't even perhaps think of them as being part of poetry. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to read some snatches and tell you the kind of cadence that he used. Here's one. Bekar, chakri khunchen, ব্যবস্থা তো আছে. Are you out of a job? Are you looking for one? We have arrangements. Or, আমি জানালার দিকে তাকাই অন্ধকারে বৃষ্টি পড়ছে. I look out the window, it's raining in the dark. Very ordinary line, isn't it? পৃথিবীটা শেষ হওয়ার পর আমার মৃত্যুর পর আমি নিজেকে জীবনের মাঝখানে দেখতে পেলাম. After the world had ended, after my death, I saw myself in the midst of life. And yet, somehow when all of this came together in those very specifically constructed works, it transcended the simplicity of it all and became poetry in its own right. I'm aware that many people here probably don't understand Bangla, but I'm still going to request you to indulge me, and I'm just going to read a couple of his poems in Bangla. Is that all right with everyone? All right. This one is to a fellow poet called, her name was Debarati Mitro. So this is what he tells her. চিঠি তো লেখাই হয় না, কোথাও টেলিফোন করতেও ভালো লাগে না আর। বুক পোস্টে কি একটা পাঠানোর কথা ছিল, ভুলিনি কিন্তু সব বেগরবাই হয়ে গেছে। ওপরে উঠছি আর হাঁপাচ্ছি, মুখ ঠেসে হচ্ছি দুটো ইনহেলার। চারপাশে তালগোল পাকানো একটা সময়, এ নয় যে তার নাকচাবিটা ঝলমল করছে, একটা বিষের থলির বোধহয় দুদিকেই ফেঁসে গিয়েছে দুটো মুখ। আপনার নতুন বইটা পড়ছি, কি ভালো যে লাগছে আপনার কবিতা। কি বলবো দেবারতী? Here's another one. It's called Utkontha, anxiety. চিঠিপত্র নেই আর, কলকাতা এখন টেলিফোনে কথাবার্তা সেরে নিচ্ছে। মানুষের মুখোমুখি বসে তোমার কি কথা আর বলতে ইচ্ছে করছে খুব, সেকেলে আবদারগুলো এবার গঙ্গায় ছুঁড়ে ফেলো, গিলে ফেলো, পাত্তারি গোটাও। He sat himself in his room and he wrote, and he constantly worried about the fact that there was a death sentence on him. He knew that he was going to die. He was going to die soon in the latter part of his life. He was aware of the fact that his chain smoking had brought him to the brink of death, and the doctors had pretty much written him off. And they said that it's just a matter of time now before you go, which perhaps explains why so much of his poetry had to do with on the imminence of death. And yet, there's this strange, ironic detachment from it, where there's no great sense of grief, and above all, greatly he wasn't bothered about himself. And he said that eventually, when I die, people will know that Calcutta is one person less, and that's all there is to it. I'm very grateful to Seagull Books that they have chosen to publish Bhaskar Chakrabarti in translation. His perhaps is oddly enough the voice that will stay on over a longer period of time, because it doesn't really belong to that particular period in which he wrote. It captures the strangeness of the human condition in a way that is not tethered to a particular place and time. He wrote a great deal. He wrote, he didn't write a great deal compared to some of the others of his time. Practically all his poetry is just collected here in these 2 volumes. He published even less than he wrote. He wrote much more. But I believe really that the works he's left behind will cement his place as a remarkable poet of the city, as a remarkable poet of a person who knew what life and death was about, perhaps better than most of us. Thank you, and thank you once again, Pritish, for reading those poems so wonderfully. Thank you, Naveen. Has Naveen left?
No? Fat chance. Thank you, everybody. There's a whole lot of books on display outside, including this one. And there's a wonderful book, freshly translated version of the Isha Upanishad by Pritish, which is also outside. Thank you.